Welcome to Syncreate, a show where we explore the intersections between creativity, psychology, and spirituality. We believe everyone has the capacity to create. Our goal is to demystify the process and expand the boundaries of what it means to be creative. We talk with visionaries and change makers and everyday creatives working in a wide range of fields and mediums, from the arts to science, technology, and business. We aim to illuminate the creative process from imagination to innovation and everything in between. I'm Melinda Rothouse, and I help individuals and organizations bring their dreams and visions to life. At Syncreate, we're here to support your creative endeavors. So if you have an idea for a project or a new venture and you're not quite sure how to get it off the ground, reach out to us at syncreate.org. Our book, also called Syncreate, walks you through the stages of the creative process so you can take action on your creative goals. We also offer resources, creative process tools, and coaching to help you bring your work to the world. And we have a monthly creativity coaching group starting up in 2025. You can find more details on the website. So I am very delighted today to have on the show Chris Stack, who is actually my high school classmate, and he's also starring in Stereophonic, the play that's blowing up Broadway at the moment. He plays the role of Simon, the drummer. Over the years, he's also done a number of film and TV shows, including notably School of Rock back in the day. And he's a longtime member of the Actors Studio. Hey, everyone. I am so excited and kind of joyful to have Chris Stack on the show today, who, in addition to being a now big Broadway star, is my high school classmate from Park Tudor in Indianapolis. So,
Go Panthers!
Yes, go Panthers. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you have a crazy busy schedule at this point. And, we did theater and music together in high school for years. And now here you are in Stereophonic on Broadway. But I know that didn't happen overnight, right? So
No.
you went to college at Lewis and Clark in Portland, and then, you've done some films, notably School of Rock. You've done TV, but, I would say arguably this is probably the biggest project you've done. Would you agree with that?
I think it's, on multiple scales, it's the biggest project. I think, like you mentioned, School of Rock, I feel like that may, in terms of a certain kind of lexicon, that might be the most accessible for people. But like for me personally, and in terms of, just Broadway being a thing and the number of people that we get coming to see this show on a nightly basis, 8 times a week, like, yeah, it's definitely up there. And in terms of creative fulfillment, it's probably the biggest. It's probably my grandest achievement, and I don't mean on sure, like a statistical level, like we were talking about, but just in terms of my creative life from kind of heretofore being realized in a really satisfying way.
Yeah. So what is it like for you to kind of have this big break at this point in your career? Like, you've been doing theater in New York for quite a while now, and, working as an actor. And so what does that feel like to have this happen now? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm always reluctant to call anything, especially at this point in my life and my career. I'm reluctant to call anything a break, because until now have really kind of struggled to see anything as having kind of moved the needle at all. Like, there are several projects that I've worked on, including School of Rock 20 plus years ago, where my agent or other people are like, whoa, great movie, Richard Linklater, Jack Black, his first, that's a break. And it sure felt like a break, because and in many ways it was, but in terms of it like really moving the needle substantially for me as an artist who had some kind of creative freedom or some kind of difference in his career before and after that event, I just don't find that happens. I mean, and I'm not saying that it doesn't happen at all, because it certainly does, and people certainly talk about it all the time. But, I've worked on a number of things over the years, where people are like, "Whoa, this is really gonna change things for you," and I guess it does in terms of a kind of creative fulfillment, but it doesn't in terms of any kind of professional, um, leaps and bounds, or in terms of who's calling me or who's calling my agents, more frequently since a certain project.
Yeah.
Um, and I really like, so to be more specific about the question, I mean, to have this project that is so incredibly fulfilling. I mean, on a scale, um, that it represents, but also then just in terms of the details of its very being, like the kind of writing it is, the kind of role it is, the specific ways that I relate to this person who I'm playing on this kind of stage every night. Um, Being 51 and having been in New York for 26 years and having a good sense of what that then means,
Mm-hmm.
be kind of pursuing a thing for so long. I definitely feel like I have achieved a goal, but I don't really feel like, I've quote unquote made it, or I've had some kind of huge break, because I mean, it's definitely a gift, but I don't really have any kind of frame of reference for like things being any different or things being any easier or things
Mm.
being like wide open for me. Like I don't have to work anymore, or I can kind of pick and choose what it is that I want to do from now forward. Because like I'm right in the middle of it and I haven't even spoken with anybody about doing anything else. And I don't
Right.
really have a desire to, because I love what it is in and of itself so much. Um,
Yeah, so what it is, so you play the role of Simon, the drummer in the show, which if anyone hasn't heard of it by now, it is about a
yeah,
band in this.
if you haven't
Right?
heard
Come
me,
on, man. It's about a band in the recording studio in the 70s modeled after Fleetwood Mac, right? And so where do I want to go with this? You play a drummer in the
yeah,
show, and you've always been a drummer ever since I've known you. You were playing drums in high school and beyond, and so there's the acting part, and then you play the live music on stage every
yeah.
single night, night after night. How do you keep it fresh?
Um, I mean, I think it's part of the challenge of doing any play, never mind a play that has any kind of lengthy run, is, as you say, keeping it fresh. And I think it's just a part of, I mean, it's the part of the technique is just being open to new experiences in the everyday.
Mhm.
It's an applicable life strategy as well, like you go from home to the studio as you've done many times before, but I would venture to say that this trip involved many details, from whether it was, whatever you were listening to on the radio, to what the weather was like, to who you saw, to who you didn't see, to the red light that you stopped at versus the green light you stopped at, and being open to these kind of experiences.
Mhm.
You do the quote unquote same thing. And a beautiful thing about this play is that it's such a wide net and it's such a deep well that there are never ending possibilities to kind of pick your own adventure, every time you go through it. And with six other people who are operating on the same wavelength, like it, it just kind of continues to bear that kind of fruit. And some parts, and I don't want to say some parts become stale, but you do, after having done the same thing, like the first time you drove to the studio, you were very attentive to the detail, the directions, like I need to take
Exactly.
right here. I don't need to pay attention to those kind of details anymore. Like
Mhm.
your mind wanders now. Like you start thinking about like, what the heck am I going to talk to Chris about for 45 minutes? This dude, and like, so you start, I know, just like pulling teeth. I
Come
can't
on.
wait. I can't wait to be over. So your mind starts to wander. And then you're like, oh, I need to, yes, I need to take a left here, or whoa, the light has changed or whatever. And so those things can be true, the 240th time you're doing this play, your mind starts to wander, and then you're snapped back into reality, your immediate reality, in different ways in different places every single time you do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point though about that, that openness, because we know from the study of creativity that the personality trait of openness to experience is the most highly correlated to creativity. So, that makes perfect sense to me that, yes, you're doing the same thing pretty much night after night, but there every moment is new, right?
Yeah.
Every day is a new day. So, therefore, yeah. So I'm curious, like in the casting of the show, I assume, cast members were chosen both based on their acting abilities and their musical abilities.
hmm
What was that like? What was the initial like audition process like for you?
Um, well, so first there was I auditioned for a workshop in 2019, uh, and I've played drums for a long time, but uh, I just kind of did so recreationally. So I never really, I have an electric kit that I play for fun, and I certainly I have a kind of a bass. I had a kind of bass level skill, and I played in a band in high school, and I played in a band in college. And when I was playing more, I was better. When I play less, surprise, surprise, I am less better. Um, and so when this workshop rolled around in 2019, I read the play and was just like, it just rung all of my bells from
Mm,
the, you know, all the different facets of the character in the play. But then I felt a little rusty playing the drums. And so I practiced a ton, booked studio time, and played on the electric kit that I have, but electric and acoustic drums just feel differently.
mm,
And then I booked it, but I couldn't do it because I had a conflict with another job. There was one day and I was heartbroken. But then I resolved to just not be caught flat-footed like that again with my.
yeah.
So I'm not saying that I got a lot better, but I got a lot less rusty over
Mm,
the course of the next, I guess, what would amount to almost 4 years, until they came back around and they were going to do an off-Broadway run. And the audition was, they sent through a track, um, an original track that was going to be in the show for me to learn, and then in the audition play with Will Butler, who's the composer, and
mhm.
Justin Craig, the musical director. So we did that, and then there were, I don't know, probably 10 pages or so of sides, which is the scenes, the script that you're auditioning with. And I worked with a buddy from the actor studio here in New York on those auditions, and so kind of just came in, and you have a take on the character, and then you present that take, and then in the best case scenarios you work with the director and you kind of see how you dialogue, and you see if you can communicate. And he usually, Daniel Auken, who's just one of the best ever, will just kind of he just wants to see how you work together, to see, like, is this relationship really possible.
Mm,
Eh, um, and that's really fun. So sometimes you go in and you do your thing, and the directors are, if they say anything, they say thanks. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you did a bad job. That just
right.
means you don't have anything to offer, or they're not interested in working with you. But it's way more interesting to work with somebody and to see just how you connect, and how you would work together if you were to work together. So The second time around, the drumming went way better.
Good.
Both
I
Will and
guess
Jeff.
so.
Yeah. And it didn't go badly the first time. Like, I've had conversations with them since, and they were like, "No, you were great the first time around," but I was way more nervous the first time around and way more confident the second time around. And that just kind of, we did the song, um, and then moved into the acting part. And Daniel he has you in the room for 30 minutes, which is also kind of unheard of. Usually you get maybe like 10 minutes to kind of do your little song and dance, and then don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Right. Exactly. Well, I have to say I was listening to the cast recording of the show, and it sounds great.
It's
Like,
cool, right?
yeah.
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 That was another, this show just, I mean, it just kind of keeps giving. We learned the songs, we learned the songs fully, and in the play, I don't want to give too much about it give away too much about it, because you're coming, yay, and
Yes, in October. Can't wait.
anybody else who might come to see, there are whole songs and incomplete songs and versions of songs that are played, that then this cast album is a realization of. So it's kind of, if you listen to the album, then you can kind of go back and see, when you see the play, like, this is a little bit of like the making of. If you haven't listened to the album, then you kind of go in and think, you're just wide open, like, what is this experience, and hear these people playing these songs, and then you listen to the album and think, oh wow, this is the album. But it's also the cast album, it's the show album. Like, it's
Yeah. And it's
not just,
works in progress in the process of recording in the studio, right?
yeah, and also in the process of rehearsing a play. Like, there
Mhm.
are very subtle references to taking something back and rehearsing a light cue or a sound.
Mhm.
You can
Mm.
hear manager's voice, or some of um, some of the dialogue is from when we as a band were recording in the studio, but not as the characters on the stage, just as people in the studio. So we don't have, those of us who are American but playing Brits were actually speaking with our American accents. And
Mhm.
thinking about the creative process in this, like, other way, like this kind of Moebius strip, this multi-layered
Yeah.
way, which I think is super cool. The way that Will conceived of and then put together this album just adds, it's just another layer to the whole, um, to this whole piece.
Yeah.
How
So
it's a rock and roll album, but it's also a cast album. And
yeah.
the characters, but also the actors.
Yeah. And I know you're a big Van Halen fan. I heard
Yeah.
another another show you did talking all about Van Halen, but were you a Fleetwood Mac fan?
I
Or
mean, well, at the end of the day, who's not a Fleetwood Mac
well,
fan?
yes,
I
of course.
feel like anybody who's like, "No, whatever, they're too corporate," like, okay, maybe, but they got some really good songs and
For
everybody
sure.
knows them. I really love the original, like the old Fleetwood Mac with Peter Green and Mick Fleetwood and John McVie, even before Christine McVie came in, when they were a blues band.
Yeah.
But then, like, the iteration that everybody knows that started with the eponymous Fleetwood Mac album and then Rumors, like, that's just amazing songwriting. And is it something that I pop on every day? No, but when it comes on, I don't turn it off, and um, I really enjoy it, and I really enjoy them. I think in terms of the play, one of I think the most effective ways that Fleetwood Mac is invoked, because it is decidedly not a biography of Fleetwood Mac.
Right. And the
Because
music is all original, I
it's
should
all
add.
original, yeah.
Right.
It's 100% original, composed by Will Butler, who wrote a lot of the music for Arcade Fire for 20 years. But because of the band dynamics, there are three Brits who had been together for a long time, and these two younger Americans, and it's
Mhm.
1996, and it's the record plant in Sausalito, which is where, like, all of these things, and there are other various details from the characters that correspond with um, Fleetwood Mac's story, but it's not Fleetwood Mac. We're an unnamed band.
Right.
All of characters have different names, but the brilliant conceit in that is that people recognize energetically that this is a band on that level. Like,
Yeah.
and we don't talk about how good we are, and we don't talk about this, that, and the other thing that then people have to kind of take a leap of faith to just believe. They automatically are like, oh, this is one of the greatest bands of, the 70s, at least on a certain level, like, I think that Van Halen was one of the greatest bands of the 70s, or the Grateful Dead, or like the Clash, all these people who did all sorts of things, or the punk movement, like whatever. But it invokes a certain kind of recognition when you see this play and see these people, that immediately makes you understand that you're dealing with things on a certain level. Like, there's no kind of, there's suspension of disbelief always when you're watching a play, but the thing that you kind of even unconsciously understand is that the stakes are high, and this is a big time rock and roll band.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really kind of, and then the big challenge becomes writing music and performing it in such a way that when you do hear it, you're not like, oh, I thought you were this, but you're actually like pretty bad.
Right.
That was a fear. It was a legit fear.
Well, have you improved as a musician just from
Definitely.
being in the show? Yeah, I would imagine.
I'll tell you, and I'll explain for people who won't know who these people are, but Steve Kane and Lowell Goss,
Mhm.
who were classmates of ours, and who were the guitar player and the bass player in the band that I was in high school, they both came to see the play individually, and it was really fun and somewhat nerve-wracking to play while they were watching it. We played together over 35 years ago,
Yeah.
and they were both like, wow, they both make music kind of independently, and they were in a band together for a long time. But like, to play in front of people who have known you just for so long, and to have like moved on from where you were, but sometimes somehow kind of feel like you're in many ways stuck in that time because of things that happened in the mid 80s. It was really moving to me. And that, like, and Steve comes with his family, and Lowell comes with his family, and like all of a sudden I'm in the 80s and I'm in 2024, and
Right.
I'm better drummer, but I'm also not as good as Toby Brody, and all of these things, they all happen all at once. But yeah, as a drummer, I always lacked the discipline to go and practice the rudiments and the basics on my own. So I
Mhm.
feel like I got to a certain level of proficiency, where then this play, since last August 2023, I've played 6 days a week, and in the beginning, especially 4 hours a day. And now I go in early and I warm up and I play, and I play with other people, and we have jam sessions. And like, yeah, I'm as good as I've been in a long time. And not just my chops, which are, maybe I'm not the next, Buddy Rich, but like in terms of my ear and the way I listen to other musicians and the way I can hear things and respond to them, like that's definitely keener, sharper, more keen
Yeah.
than it was a year ago. And that's really fun. It's really gratifying. And to
Yeah.
be able to do that as a musician, was simultaneously as an actor, and have them kind of be one and the same, is just, it's such a joy.
It seems pretty awesome, I will say. Do you have any I don't not that you have any time for it right now, but do you have any other, like, musical projects on the side? No.
Nope. We have, we go, there's the understudies are musicians, and the Will is clearly a musician, and Justin, our musical director, is a wonderful musician. And when we can, we kind of set up days to go in early, and whoever's there, we just kind of show up and jam. And in my fantasy world, there are a couple of scenarios in which like people stick together and we come up with some original stuff and we just play it. And I don't necessarily need to record it, but it would be fun to you know do more than jam at some point, like whether
Oh,
it's
yeah.
play out or record it, or So I don't have anything else um, currently, but I have fantasies of other things.
Yeah, who knows, right? I mean, my mantra is I can do everything, just not all at once. So you never
Well,
know, right?
absolutely. Wise
Um,
woman. Yeah.
you mentioned the cast, and I know we mentioned, when we were chatting before this, like there's a bit of an age difference in the cast, um, which is relevant to the show itself, and also that the cast is going to be changing. Yeah, so tell us what's that like to be now starting to work with some new cast members after you've been doing this as a group for over a year now?
Yeah. It's trippy. It's bittersweet because the 7 of us have become really close. But I was just, speaking with my cousin and speaking with my castmates who are some of whom are ready to move on to other things, and you definitely wanna, if you're gonna part, you wanna part on a high, not, kind of peak and then ruin the experience you've had by getting sick of it. So some people are just ready to do something else. What that else is, I don't know, and they don't necessarily know. But Sarah Pigeon, who's in the play playing Diana, she's booked another job that begins in October, I think. So she's going to go off and do that, and then Tom Pacinka and Juliana Canfield are just ready to be open to other possibilities. Um, and so they're being replaced by Tom's understudy, Ben Anderson, is going to play Peter. And then this wonderful young woman named Amy Forsyth is going to be playing Diana, Sarah Pigeon's part. And then Rebecca Naomi Jones, who is a friend of a friend, just coincidentally is going to be playing Juliana Canfield's part, or is going to be playing Holly, who is Ben Juliana's Canfield's part. And they're very different. They're very different people. They're very different
Yeah.
artists. Really cool to, like, a year in, to be doing the play at night, and then during the day, some days, um, go off and kind of rediscover this play that we've been working on together through new eyes and through new voices, and see people who are where we were a year ago. It's really moving,
Mm.
really exciting, and to know, um, like, I kind of feel a certain, it's not preciousness, but a certain, something is coming to a close that has been going on for, um, over a year now, and something else is beginning. Um, and it's sad and exciting at the same time, and also, it's fall, which to me, and I think to many people, is a time of change and a time of beginning and renewal because of, we all went to school, or things just start happening in the fall.
Mhm. Yep.
My son just began kindergarten. And my dad happened to be in town, so, like, these 3 generations, like, somebody's 80s in his 80s, and I'm in my 50s, and he's 5, and he's going to school, and these people are leaving this thing, and these people are coming into this thing. It's a lot. It's a lot. The
It's a
weather's
lot.
stuff, but it's really, like, it's always a kind of mournful but exciting time of change, as a lot of change is.
Yeah. Yeah. The autumn to me is always like the kind of this wistful, nostalgic time of year too. But
Totally.
so you mentioned your son, right? So you're performing 6 days a week and you have 2 young children.
Yeah,
What's
and
that like?
an amazing partner
Yes.
who bears a lot of the load of my absence. So,
E
I wouldn't be able to do this
Yeah.
without her,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I also, you know, wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't have an amazing partner and kids, because if I was just a single dude, I wouldn't have the kind of depth of understanding of this character that I do, who is a father a long way away from his family.
Yeah.
No, no.
Yeah. And I would imagine, you in your mind, you think about, "Oh, someone's doing this show on Broadway, and it's a rock and roll show, and, like, what happens after the show, and partying, and all this
Right.
kinda stuff," but, like, you're coming home to your family.
Yeah, I'm coming home as quickly as I can, I'm getting in bed as quickly as I can, and I'm sleeping as hard as I can for as long as I then waking up and, letting Erin hopefully rest a little bit longer because she does the night shift, and then, getting as of for the last 3 days, then, like, getting into the school. He just started around the corner, which is amazing. And then we have, a sitter comes at, like mid-morning, like 9:30, 10. And the idea that you're older and you have kids when you consider 9:30 mid-morning.
Right.
There was a time when noon was mid-morning.
Right, exactly. But, I mean, you also have to take really good care of yourself, right?
Yes, yes. And some of that's a skill that I've, like, learned within the last 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
um, and the timing is really good.
Yeah, and just to be able to continue that, you've gotta have stamina to continue at that rate, it's kinda open-ended, right? Like, you did the show off Broadway, then you came to Broadway, then it's been extended a couple times. You don't know how long it may continue, hopefully for a long
This
time, right?
Yeah, I mean, this iteration is I think it was gonna close February 2nd because there is another play that's coming in to our theater after that.
Okay.
But then we're in negotiations to take it to London next spring and summer. So,
Amazing.
start up again,
Yeah.
in April. We'll either rehearse here and then go over there, or we'll go over and rehearse and run the thing there for 5 months at least. So, like,
Awesome.
kind of gift that keeps on giving, just with different angles and in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kinda circling back to, what we were talking about initially, just all the work you've done over the years and then kind of getting to this point, I would imagine that required a lot of perseverance, right? Like, not giving up. I'm sure there's moments of self-doubt, moments of rejection when you don't get a role. Like, how did you navigate all of that?
I think the most important element needed to navigate all of that is the conviction that this is what you need and have to do.
Yeah.
That there's not another option. Um, if I thought, "Oh, I've always wanted to join the Coast Guard," I probably would have done it
Right.
a while
Yeah.
a while. And I just knew that doing something else wasn't an option. Um, and that unfortunately also kind of, I mean, it ups the stakes because if there's nothing else that you can do and you're not doing it, then you just really feel, um, in some kind of purgatory at best,
Yeah.
some kind of hell at times where, like, there's nothing else I can do and I'm not doing it. Um, lots of, lots of moments of self-doubt, lots of, uh, moments when you just need, lots of moments when you think, "Well, is there something else that I can do?"
Mm,
And not only not is there something else that I wanna do, but is there something else that I can do that makes me feel like either A, I'm a contributing member of society, or that I am a working artist, or that I am a just kind of functional human being. And you either find those things or you don't, and you get through those moments somehow, you know?
yeah.
Um, you definitely, the community, especially in New York, I don't have much, experience with it I don't really have any experience with it in California and Los Angeles, but like it's a really supportive community in New York, the theater community, the acting community. And I just mostly mean actors. Like, sure, there's a competition because we all want to succeed, we all want to work, but everybody gets it, you know. And I've never been to an audition that was like nasty in the waiting room. Like, people are always very courteous, people are always very supportive. Like, if you're in a rush, like, people will let you go first, or, you know, and like share sides, or, you know, just offer an ear, or, you know, a shoulder, or whatever. And that certainly helps to know that you're not the only one going through it.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and then just yeah, and then just like getting back at it, because that's what you need to do. I couldn't do I've been a member of the Actor Studio for 20 years, and you know, I auditioned in yeah, 2005, 2004, and then became a member. And it's been an invaluable resource in terms of a very specific community of people who are working. It's art for art's sake. You bring in things that you want to work on, you work on them with people, and you get feedback from peers and mentors, and then you kind of go back to work, and then you come back in. And if you get a job, then you go and do that job, and then you come back when that job is over, and you just keep working on your craft and keep kind of, you know, um, just keep your toolbox sharp, and keep your toolbox full, and keep your toolbox growing, and, you know, keep your analogies numerous. Um, then, you know, you're working. Like, I'm a strong proponent of work begets work, you know. And there's a lot of just energetic movement, that if you're out there and you are working, and you are I don't wanna say staying positive, because that's way too hallmarky, but, like, I do feel like on when you are kind of bopping down the street with a certain pep in your step, like, the trains all run on time and you
For
catch all the
sure.
lights,
Yeah.
run into people, have these fortuitous moments.
Mhm.
You're having a shitty day, the trains are all shut down, like, the it starts raining, and you've got, like, paper flip on, and you're in Times Square, and just like and the people you run into are just the worst. And I think the same holds true with working in the arts. Like, if you're a painter, if you're a musician, if you're creating, you're working on something, and that attracts that um, kind of energy in a cyclical way. And um, I think the Actor Studio has afforded me the opportunity to just keep at it, even if nobody wants to hire me to
Yeah.
do it, and pay me to do something that, you know, is, like, it's the US, it's commerce based. A lot of it is commerce based. Even off-Broadway theater, not-for-profit theater, like, you still gotta raise money, and you still gotta spend money, and you still gotta pay money, and you still gotta have the spaces, and you gotta advertise, and you gotta market. Like, it's commerce based. Um, and the Actor Studio has been a place that's just art for art's sake. And then, you know, you get a job. I was on a soap for a couple years, and that
Yeah.
was an incredible experience. Like, was it the most artistically fulfilling? No, but it was incredibly fulfilling, and professionally, it was great, and financially, it was great. And also, like, I learned some tricks and some skills working on a soap that I still use,
I bet.
uh, you know, to this day. And they're muscles that I'm grateful for. So I think, you know, it all just work begets work. Even if it's not a job beginning a job, it's an effort beginning an effort, and the energy that you put out comes back to you. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I hear you also emphasizing community
Yeah,
and attitude, right? Which leads me to, on this show we're exploring kind of creativity, psychology, and spirituality. We haven't really touched on that, but is there a spiritual element to the work or to the process for you?
yeah, 100%. Um, I don't know if I could define it. I certainly can't. um, pin it down as being the certain school of thought, whether it's um, kind of classical religion or New Age beliefs. And
Not a
there's not
dogma
there's
attached
not
to it. Yeah,
100% there, but there is a, like, I feel like kind of what we were just speaking about it being just like a general belief in, um, I guess I mean, in a certain way, it is really. I mean, there's the golden rule, and there
sure.
is reaping what you sow, um, and love thy neighbor. Like all of these tenets, these broad general tenets of
Mhm.
many of the world's religions are uh, are general tenets of many of the world's just kind of spiritual practices and openness and flow and, touchstones. I have a lot of little things that I keep around that I like to keep me around that I like to keep around that remind me of people. I have a photograph that I can see behind my computer, for example, of me and Boomer Wallace and Warren Jackson and Bruce Morton and Brett Clark and Scott Fisher and Tom Page, Jeff White, like all these people, like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and my son and Eddie Van Halen air guitaring on a broom. These these things are touchstone. Like these things mean
Yeah,
they
yeah,
they keep me rooted in a place, that then also allows me to and encourages me to, kind of reach deeper into the unknown and keep looking for questions, never mind answers. I'm never no answers have a certain, um, amount of interest for me, but I think questions are really, as long as you're asking questions and you're always looking, you're always thinking, you're always searching, you're always staying active. So I think that a lot of these things, um, encourage me to keep moving, keep searching.
yeah,
And I think that creative impulse is one that is always questioning, like writing songs and painting, like just creating is a process of asking yourself questions and looking for greater answer, or not even greater answers, greater questions.
yeah, I love that, and that's kind of a beautiful segue because 'cause we're just sort of getting toward the end of our time, and I like to end each episode with what I call a creativity pro tip, which is
Mm,
something that people can kinda take with them and try out on their own, and, I don't know, I think this as a creative, always asking the questions is a
yeah,
great one.
yeah. And I think that like seeking, I mean, and I would get more. I like the idea that questions lead to more specific questions and other questions. And like
Yeah.
answers, sure, answers are helpful.
But there's a finality to them too,
I know.
right? Like, "Oh, okay, done," right? And questions just keep opening up new possibilities.
Yeah, and a lot of people say, like great works of art are never finished; they're just abandoned. And I kind of feel like you just stop asking questions, and maybe because at a certain point, maybe you kind of have to. Like
Right.
I'm out of questions, or I'm out of time. Um, but to ever think that like, no, fixed it,
Yep,
solved
all
it.
done, we're good, right? That's kind of the end, right? Yeah,
Yeah, that's the end.
yeah,
Um, and I think that that happens whether you're doing a play or writing a song or working on a car. Like you fix your car, like, well, it's working now, but there's something else. Something else is gonna. And other questions like,
always.
how long is this gonna work?
Yeah, yeah,
How long until I have to replace that fuel filter again?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
um, and
exactly.
I think it just leads you deeper into the work. I think it leads you deeper into relationships. I think it leads you deeper into friendships. Um, and I think it leads you deeper into yourself and a greater sense of self. And the greater your sense of self, the more you're able to offer, your craft, and then the more you're just ready. Like when these moments happen, when you meet an old friend or you're offered a project, you're just like, I'm ready to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. So I have a sort of unrelated question. This is from my sweet, sweet sister, Lizzie. I told her I was going to be
Oh,
talking to
yeah.
you today.
Yeah.
And this is kind of random, but she was like, will you ask Chris if he believes in healing frequencies? And if so, what's his favorite?
Whoa. Healing. I don't think I know enough to be able to identify what a healing frequency is.
I had to look it up, but like you can go to YouTube and there's these like, things you can play that have just different sound frequencies, and supposedly, they're good for different benefits, mental, physical.
Yeah. It's like sound healing. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when I just never knew that that's what it was called. When I get acupuncture, my acupuncturist, she puts these headphones on with
There you go.
sound frequencies. We just always call them songs.
Yeah. Right.
They're not melodic. They're not, it's not Fleetwood Mac, it's not Van Halen, but it's like
Right.
the chimes and bells and tuning forks and things that like definitely create different vibrations and sensations that they're not necessarily definable, and they're surely not palpable or tangible, but they are like, again, if you stay open to them, like they kind of take you places. And I'm definitely in a place at the end of a session that I was not in at the beginning of this.
Yes.
That has to do with the needles going into your bodies, etc. But like the sound, when Mel always asked me, she's like, "Do you want the songs?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, I want the songs."
Yeah. I love acupuncture too. I go a lot, and the music is a big part of it for sure.
There's something, in Indy's my son's old nursery school classroom, they had a little bell that you would ring that would signal a transition, or they would signal like, okay, everybody sit on your mats, or it's rest time, or it's time to move from this to that. And it's like, it's definitely effective, like way more effective twangy bell out in the hall like we had. Okay.
Exactly.
Because it's time to start this other thing.
Or that thing in the airport when the luggage is coming and it goes, I hate that. But I was in Iceland and they had one that just had this really nice tone. It was like, do. I was like, that's great. Yeah. Right? It makes a difference.
Hey, take your hand off this conveyor belt because you could get hurt if you don't.
Exactly.
You might want to think about standing up now and looking for your bag.
Exactly.
Yeah, the American ones are way more.
Oh, they're so like, grating.
If you lose a finger in this, you can't sue me.
Right.
Just get up off of it. Not healing.
Yeah.
Not nice.
So, I know we're kind of at time, and I know you got to go, but another thing is you're not really on social media.
I'm not. Not only am I not really, I'm not.
You're not. Period. Is there a particular reason for? I get it, but
it's too
much. So, what's the best way for people to find you if they want to find you?
No, how did you? We found each other through friends.
Well, I've known you a long time, but I mean, you're all over the internet pretty much. Right. Stereophonic.com for the show.
Yeah, but there's no way to communicate via that. I mean, that's a great way to find information about the show and each of the projects. I mean, I think like me professionally, I have an IMDb page.
Well, you're out there in the world, so people can find out more about what you're up to. Yeah.
Totally.
Find and connect with us on YouTube and social media under Syncreate. We're now on Patreon as well. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review and subscribe. We're recording today at Record ATX Studios in Austin with Chris Stack joining us from New York City. The podcast is produced in collaboration with Mike Osborne at 14th Street Studios here in Austin. Thanks so much for being with us, and see you next time.